Today's topic on the Love Change podcast is a tough cookie. It's about feeling not good enough. It's a bit of a internal dialogue you might have once in a while or all the time when you're trying to do new things, when you're trying to grow, when you're trying to change. That some voice in your head is telling you to doubt yourself, that you're not smart enough, you don't look good enough, you are something, whatever, not enough, and that deflates
Fill
you.
in blank.
It blocks you. It stops you from stepping out of your comfort zone. We're going to talk about how we deal with that, how we experience that, and what you can do to overcome this negative voice in your head that's telling you you're not enough.
This podcast is all about change and the discomfort that we deal with, and that's what we appreciate to talk about because we believe that it's important to learn to love change and face all those moments and grow. And we stream live. Thanks for laughing.
Super
Someone's super
business,
happy.
super business introduction. And today we are gathering on this. Continue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for bumping into it like every week.
Yeah.
We stream either live on Instagram or Facebook every Tuesday, or otherwise, you can tune into your podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to share, give us a like because we appreciate when we get to more people with what we do and spread the word.
Yay. Little disclaimer, we're both a bit sick, might have the Ronies, might not have the Ronies. So the energy is not where it's usually at.
Because we love change.
How you want to kick this off, Kay?
How do you feel about not being productive enough this week?
Yeah, I think this week is a great example.
This week.
Last couple of weeks, I would say. Not doing enough, not getting enough output. How do I feel about it? I feel bad about it. I feel like I'm delaying on seeing my dreams come true. Feel like I'm letting myself down. Uh, I know I need to recover first before I can do anything substantial. But at the same time, I would rather be in a different place. I think this example is not a great one because this is really about being incapacitated. I don't know how you pronounce that word, but I am not able to do what I usually can, and that makes me feel bad. And today
As you compare your
today we're talking about, for instance, you thinking your website's not pretty enough to launch it, or me thinking my presentations are not, or my website, perfect example, is not good enough, or my me judging your introduction energy level not being high enough. And that's something you didn't do to yourself. I did it to you, so I'll blame on me for that. But we're talking about
super business introduction.
Hello, today we are talking.
The point is, whatever I do, I just cannot do it right. That's the whole point. Whatever I do, no, I never had one intro. You've been like, wow, either my voice is too low. That's mine, not good enough. You can do better.
We can do better. Yeah, I think there is a certain amount of energy that comes with introducing a podcast.
I think I have a certain amount of energy that is not your energy because I'm a female human being, and that's okay.
Well, we'll leave the couple arguments. You want to comment? Couple arguments to the side of today's episode. I'm having a very big headache at the moment as well.
Yeah.
I think, like for instance, what I had yesterday was me pushing myself, ramping up to do a talk at JCI, and constantly physically I was getting signals that I would not be healthy enough to keep my focus for an hour, because that's what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. And that's a great example of what do you do with those voices in your head. Yeah. So throughout the day I kept pep talking myself, kept giving myself more and more rest, and also cutting out the weeds, in the sense that I want to do this, I want to add that, I want to do this. I just kept it to a bare minimum. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I've done this before, I can do it again. That's an example of doing something that you've already done.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about doing things you've never done before, because that's where change is at, you know?
Yeah.
And in those moments that you're like, hey, I'm gonna deal with my relationships differently. Yeah, I think relationships is a big one.
Yeah. I agree.
Talking about the not good enough message. I think
Mm-hmm.
this week I've also overcome a bunch of voices in my head feeling not good enough to be taken care of. Um, you should spend your energy elsewhere, more
Yeah.
productively than me dragging my
Yeah, I was
body
really
around.
surprised when you said yesterday, it'd be nice if you stay home, then it's nice if you're around, if I need
Yeah,
you. So that
yeah.
was really, yeah, I was really applauding that.
So that's a moment or an example of overcoming that.
Mm-hmm.
I think me personally, the not good enough message uh, doesn't bother me as much as I see with my coaching clients, because I always think to myself, if somebody else can do it, then why couldn't I be able to
Mm-hmm.
do it? Like, not, I'm not lacking intelligence or motivation in that sense. But
Coaching.
no, not coaching, just in anything in life. So if I start a new company,
Ah.
a lot of companies that I've started, I had nothing background wise
Mm-hmm.
to do with the business, the industry. I just showed up, rolled up my sleeves, and went to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So in that sense, those are moments when you're out of your comfort zone, that they're not good enough, not smart enough, not well equipped enough. Message shows up in your head.
Yeah.
And how is that for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, after working for so many years in a corporate environment, having a team most of the time, and now being by myself, more or less, with our intern is kind of also very much out of the comfort zone, and also realizing that it's a whole different thing. Like, I was doing fashion, I was managing teams, collections, whatever, and now it's superfoods. It's running a plant-based superfood pharmacy, and just making all the decisions by myself, most of them at least. Have someone to ask, but I find that super discomforting.
How often do you get the not good enough message? Would you
Quite
say?
often, but what I usually like, the way I approach it, because I could like,
Wait. Let's, before we move on. How do you experience it? When does it show up? Like, before we step over with what you
mhm.
do with it, how does it? How do you know it's there? When do you feel
If
it?
I start doing something, I don't know, I open Photoshop and I start doing something, I want to do a layout for something,
Uh-huh.
which I haven't done so many times in my life. So I'm like, I might need to watch Photoshop tutorials to get that stuff done. So then, of course, you're like, oh my gosh, you're such a newbie. Like, you're such a, like, how come you have never learned that software properly? You know, those things. That's where it starts. And then do a layout. How many times have I done a layout in my life? Maybe 5 times.
Mm.
So it's like, what do I want to have? You know? So that's where all those voices start screaming.
Mm.
Definitely,
And
because
what
it's
happens
something.
when you get those voices in your head?
What what I do
What
with it,
what
or
is the result?
yeah, first of all, I'm like, I mean, what I started to do is like rating my expertise in that area. To be like, okay, how many layouts have you done in your life? Oh, five.
Mm.
Oh, okay, maybe then you should not telling yourself that you're not good
Expect,
enough.
yeah, expect.
Exactly. Like, what do you expect? That you're a natural born talent and you're just gonna.
Wake up with Photoshop skills.
Exactly. So that's why. And I think that is
That's
a
a good
very
one.
measurable way
How
of
much
approaching
experience
it.
do you
Yeah,
have?
exactly. Like, it's just like, okay, how many times have I done that in my life? Very few.
Mm.
Okay, so why would I beat myself up? I rather spend the time and energy into looking at tutorials or
Mm.
looking at someone else's product that kind of is the vision I want to have, and be like, oh, that actually is a good inspiration. This is what I kind of want to have, but in my own thing, you know?
Mm.
And yeah, and then just try. And like, I never want to really compare, but sometimes if I look at bigger brands that do products like I do, and I see sometimes those super crappy designed
Yeah, I
image and
also
stuff. I'm like,
you're
what the
giving them
fuck?
shit as well.
Exactly. I'm like, what the fuck? How come like you are such a big company with so many people, so much turnover? You have like 30 people working for that company, and like this is the output you get. And then I'm like, okay,
Can
I'm
be
more than
satisfied.
peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So
But I
it's
think
a
it's
good
important.
tactic right here. If you feel
Yeah.
bad about whatever you're doing, look at somebody who's doing worse, and then you'll feel good about yourself.
No, that's not what we want to promote here. Yeah, just rate your skills. Just be really
No, your
neutral.
experience, not your skills. I think what you said is how often have you done such a thing?
Yeah, but
So
skills
don't.
based on your experience.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I have no experience, how can I have skills? Literally.
I don't know. I'm not gonna get into the semantics of skills and experiences, but
Okay.
basically, it's matching up your expectations with where you're coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and that works in the productive realm in like work, etc.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work in a personal environment? Because then we're not talking about how much experience I've had, or maybe you have skills but you think they're poor.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
that's why I was like the relationship one is an interesting
Yeah,
one,
I agree.
because the only moment you can be like, I'm good at relationships, is because you've always stayed in the same relationship or not, or
I don't
like
think we
I don't
have
know,
any
like
comparison there.
I think like this good enough thing is about your self-worth.
Yeah.
Like what are you, what how do you value yourself? And then when that is a bit off, it might slow you down, because if we look back on the productive side of it, I remember you not wanting to do, for instance, the premiere editing because you hadn't had enough experience and you didn't feel like it. You wanted to do it together. And that was like, besides it being a new thing, I also saw in you how much it stressed you out.
Yeah.
The feeling of not knowing, not being able.
Because I felt like really asking. I needed to ask so many questions. And I think I asked a couple in the beginning, and then you've been like, yeah, well, I watched all those tutorials. And that's how I learned that you can do that too. Then I was like, this is like literally no help. Like, yeah, I can start watching all those tutorials, but actually I never asked to learn that software. So that was also not really adding to the comfort, you know, in that sense.
Did you ask to be on a podcast? Today, not actually.
I think today no one asked for that, but it's okay, we're doing it.
Yeah, we're here still because we love you and want to keep up
Don't
to
feel
our
good
promise.
enough today, but it's okay.
Yeah, to keep up to our promise to not only show up when the sun is shining. Sometimes we have rainy days, and I think today is definitely one of those days that I don't feel good enough to do a podcast. And I think that's a perfect example, because it's a bit of a mix between something professional, something we're doing with an audience, and it's a bit related to something personal, because the reason why we do this podcast is to get to know each other better. And also spark the conversation with you and your loved ones about how you deal with change. I think for me, the biggest journey in not being good enough was always the outside world telling me you're not good enough and me proving them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why my relationship to this message of not being good enough is a bit different.
Yeah, tell me more.
Like growing up as a foreigner here in the Netherlands, always being the usual suspect, always being considered slow or stupid just because you're from a different migrant background, gave me a sense of, I'm not gonna let the outside world decide my worth. I know my intelligence, and I'm gonna do me. So that also caused me to not care about fitting in a lot of times, because that's the funny conversation, for instance, we had with Damun. He was like, I'm going to meet new people and I want to blend in. So I researched them, I saw who they are, what they do, what they look like, and I dressed accordingly so I fit in. I never did that because I didn't care about fitting in, because I felt okay with who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I think this simple example of, do I look good enough? Can I go outside like this? This one. I never asked myself that question. Okay.
I absolutely agree on that.
Yeah, you can testify that you find me
Oh my
outside
gosh.
in the most fancy places, underdressed. What was it? Wearing like tights with shorts over it in a super nice restaurant
In
after all.
Izakaya, yeah.
Everybody dressed up as hell, and me looking like I came from a 80s gym class. And that's the thing. I
Yeah.
don't have those moments of self doubt. The moments that the self doubt shows up for me is when I'm tired, when I'm not seeing the results that I want to see, when I'm putting in the efforts and like not seeing the breakthrough that I want to see for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can start doubting myself in the sense that, like, yeah, maybe I'm not that smart as I thought, or the quality of my work is not as great as I thought, or it's just not it. I should just get a job and lick stamps at the post office. I don't know. Just like forget it. Give up on your dreams. Like
Okay.
like the conversation for me takes place then when I'm tired, when I'm not seeing breakthroughs, when I'm not seeing results. And the best thing for me to do in those moments is to take a break, relax, rest, because probably I overdid a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But also, what you said, acknowledge my progress, acknowledge my process, and count my blessings, count my wins. So I started incorporating the feedback form in the talks that I give. So I get a lot of
Mm-hmm.
responses. Uh, I've asked so many clients for feedback on how they experience me as a coach,
Which is very amazing what you get.
and people responding to how I write, like super heartfelt personal messages.
Mm-hmm.
People sharing with me how much what I wrote or what I write, yeah, resonates with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess that's kind of the fuel for that self doubt is other people's acknowledgement. So, for instance, today I asked you, "Do you think I'm lazy?"
Mm-hmm.
Was because I was having the conversation with myself
Mm-hmm.
about, hey, you're being a bit lazy. You feel better enough to watch a movie. Maybe you should do something productive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, honestly, I wasn't good enough to do anything, but I was having that conversation about feeling lazy, and you helped me by saying, "Hey, what if when I think you're lazy, I'll tell you you're lazy," which is fine.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
Can't
tell.
wait for that
I'm
day.
gonna tell you
I'm
you're a
gonna
lazy
test it. I'm
ass.
gonna test it.
No, but it's.
Chill.
I think it's important. I think your partner is such a mirror for you. You know, it's really important. Like if you have that conversation in your head, I think in many cases it's important to share it and be like, "Hey, this is what my crazy head is telling me. What do you think?" I mean, I really was honest about it to be like, "Hey, if I think you're a lazy ass, I will tell you. I promise.
Yeah, you've
If I
told me
catch
in
you
the past
somewhere,
also
yeah,
that
I
you're
will. You know?
chilling too hard.
Yeah."
And how about you? If you think about those messages besides the Photoshop experience,
Mm, I mean,
because you've gone also through a lot of growth in your previous career,
yeah.
where you were outgrowing your peers. So you were first of all a woman in a man's world, I would
Hmm.
say, as a manager and an executive,
Yeah.
and also pretty hostile work environment. Just
Yeah.
making assumptions here. Sorry. How did you deal with those messages back then? Because or were they even there?
They were there very loud.
And how would they show up for you?
I would really try to use them to fuel myself to get further,
Mm-hmm.
to achieve more. But I would never stop and acknowledge where I am. You know, I would just always keep running, keep expanding, keep getting promoted. And when I would stop, I'd be like, "You're not good enough." Like when you
Slowing
rest,
down.
you rust.
Oh, when you rest, you rust.
Yeah, that type of behavior, which is really why my speed in my head, the pace I had was just really not humane.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was something that was fueling. It was fueling and it was good, but it was not a good type of fuel. to really just stop
Yeah, it's
and
not
acknowledge where
sustainable.
you are and to really see how far you've gotten.
Mm.
That would also be good. But as soon as I would like start doing that, I would feel that everyone else is catching up on me. So I would just keep running. And of course, the environment is doing that to you as well. Kind of as a woman, the older you get, the more you're like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I cannot sustain the level of looks that is expected. Also, etc., etc. So it kind of like, I don't know, it's really a twisted environment, in my opinion. I find it amazingly toxic.
But this is about the looks.
Yeah, also, but of course, that is not good enough. You don't look good enough.
Mm.
You're not skinny enough. You're not
Yeah,
smart
it's
enough.
fuels a big ass cosmetic surgery industry.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah,
All the
playing
not good
in,
enough
yeah,
is
playing
so
in on
much
people's
money.
insecurities.
Yeah. We got some roses right there.
Nice, yeah. It's nice to have you guys with us.
Yeah.
We're hanging on a little string here, but you're with us. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So this not looking good enough thing is also very much related to aging, right?
Yeah.
How do you think you changed in your perception of yourself?
I kind of like, it's really almost difficult to describe it. I remember when I was 29, I was about to turn 30. I hated it. I was like, oh my gosh, 30. This is crazy. I don't want to be 30. It's so old. And now I'm turning 40 this year. It's not that I'm like hooraying around turning 40, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, I have seen so much life. Like this body, this face has seen so much experience and life. And it's also beautiful to acknowledge that. Like, I actually really wouldn't want to have a mind and body of a 25-year-old anymore. I
don't mind the body of a 25-year-old.
No, but I would say
80.
it always comes in a package.
I feel like 80. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
when you're, well, what does that chick say? Young, dumb, and full of cum. Nah, but with the body comes infused the mind and the experiences, and also I think biggest things that also change over the years are your priorities.
Yeah, also like, I don't know, if you're super young, then you kind of struggle or you really stress about 2 kilos too much on your hip. You're like, oh my gosh. When you're a bit older, you're a bit like, yeah, I had a big dinner last night. Tomorrow probably will feel better. Like, I still catch those moments where my head is like, oh yeah, like you're hip,
not skinny enough.
Your hip is getting bigger, this is getting bigger, those pants are getting tighter, and then I'm like, I guess there are really more important things in life than a body size or a fashion size or a pant size. Like,
and if it is something you care about, because now you're saying I don't care.
No, I didn't say I don't care. I care about it. But if it's 2 kilo more for a week, life is not going to come to an end.
Okay.
In the past, it would almost. I would like go to the gym 3 times more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would also put myself on a scale like 3 times a week.
Yeah, you care less about it.
I do. Yeah, it makes life just a bit easier.
Yeah. But how do you, like, you still hear the messages though?
I do, but not as much.
You don't listen to them as much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's as much stage and sound you give them, right?
No.
Or you just like, yeah, thank you, but it's not for me. Thank you, it's not the voice I want to listen to. Thank you, it's not the voice that I want to rule my day.
Yeah, I think also with your body and weight, what I've heard you say the last couple of months is it's weird that you can eat this much and still weigh the same.
Yeah.
Because you assumed that if you ate an apple, you would grow an apple on your side. So you didn't eat the apple because...
Yeah, this whole idea of like your body needs a certain amount of calories to just function through the day, that didn't exist in my head. Every time I would eat something, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is already too much calories. And to rephrase this and be like, there's an X amount of calories, that's quite a lot. This you need to like your brain to function and your body to function. And then everything else is a plus. That again gets burned by moving, by working.
Just existing.
Exactly, existence. So yeah, if you put that into perspective, then you can also kind of like look at those voices and be like, yeah, it's a voice in my head, but it's not me. Like, I don't know. Does it really matter that I?
But you have gone years
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
like
Yeah.
buckled under that voice.
I have
Like
gone a
right now,
decade,
you
more than
sound
a decade.
super, super relaxed. Like who cares? It's another
No,
voice. It's
I'm
not
not
me.
saying who
No,
cares.
but you make it sound easy.
Not at all. I went over a decade with that voice super loud screaming in my head
Mm.
and ruling my day. I would wake up in the morning, put on my pants, they wouldn't fit, and then the day would literally be the tone for the day would be set to be shitty.
Mm.
Period, you know?
So back then, those voices were ruling you,
Yeah.
and how did you get to the point that you're like, hey, this is not my voice?
I think the environment does a lot. First of all, of course, if you work in a fashion environment, then you feel like everyone is this,
Mm.
and then everyone has those voices, and all the talks that you have in your coffee breaks, it's about like, oh my gosh, I gotta cut out some calories. Have you tried this new diet? Have you tried this? Have you
Okay,
tried this
okay,
new
okay.
workout? So it's all about that. So then it's difficult to like silent out the voice in your head when everyone else is saying the same. But if you change the environment, then you start to understand what, like, then you start to see it with a bit of distance and be like, this is just a voice in my head. And I decide not to listen to this voice anymore
Yeah.
because it makes my day shitty. And I prefer to have nice days. And like defining yourself by your fashion size is the worst definition of yourself that you can choose.
Yeah. So I don't know.
It's
I
just
know.
I don't even know what the word would be. It's just so pointless. It's
It's
so
very pointless.
empty.
Very
It's
pointless.
just really empty. Like even if you buy a size 36 among three different brands, it's not going to be the same fit at all. Like I know the background, you know, I know the mathematics behind it. I know how that shit works. And even me, if I don't fit a size X in some stores, I'll be like, oh,
You feel bad about
yeah,
yourself.
despite the fact knowing that you should. Like, you know, when you had that example with the pant, when you went to buy a pant and
Yeah.
the guy was like, you're never this size. And then you're like, yeah, I needed that size.
I
He was
need
like,
to know two
what?
sizes more even.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the hell? How come, like, what does it say?
It's
What does
just
it say
a
about your self-worth?
it's just a number, right?
Exactly. So, yeah.
But I think as soon as we put numbers on things, we also relate it to good or bad or better. Like, are you more
Yeah.
or less? And then like less is better or more is better with shoe sizes, with pant sizes, all that
The
stuff.
only more that is better is self-value, honestly. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and I think that's the last part I would like to add to today's episode is behind this voice that is telling you you're not whatever it is
Feeling
enough.
blank enough, yeah.
There is a desire, and figuring out what that desire is for yourself,
Love
I
that.
think, is super helpful in calming down that voice. So I don't know what your desire was during those fashion days, or what your desire is today on your business expansion, but I think some people say it a little better every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just show up every day is a great way to
Consistency.
acknowledge yourself and then look at where you're coming from. But when you're not feeling good enough, when you're not feeling smart enough, when you're not feeling fit enough, the desire you have, I think, for me personally, is to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the not enough shows up, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're not tall enough, you cannot get on this ride, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You're not accepted. So, to figure out how that resonates within you and within what realm and which dimensions of you this acceptance plays a role, and then finding acknowledgement for that you are accepted, that people love you for the way who you are, what you do for them, what you mean for them, the things, all the things you take for granted that you don't even give yourself credit for. You're just focusing on a little bit that nobody's even concerned with.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're walking around thinking about your waist size, you're the only one with that
You're
thing.
absolutely the only one with that concern.
And when you're thinking this little corner of my website is not amazing enough, who cares? Like, that's easy to say, but the desire behind your website being nice, or your profiling being great, or your Instagram page being big, is in some form of way,
Acknowledgement.
yeah,
Yeah,
acceptance and like people embracing you.
absolutely.
And as much as we like to add numbers to it and say more is better, it's also very simple to pick up the phone and call one of your loved ones and have that
Yeah.
conversation around how much you accept each other, how much you love each other. Like when all said is done and you're taking your last breath, you'll have those memories of the people you cherish, the people you spent nice times with, and the people who made you laugh. And in those moments, we truly feel accepted and loved for who we are. And yeah, when you're having a good time, people, you're never concerned with being good enough. You're just enjoying life.
Yeah, well, I think it also really helps to share it with your closest ones. You know, if you have those doubts and voices in your head, like you did today, to be like, hey, do you think I'm lazy? I think it also really helps to share that because sometimes
Exactly.
the other person can like really dismantle that belief and be like, hey, this is literally bullshit.
Mm.
That's what I
Mm.
said today. I was like, hey, you've been super sick yesterday. Like you
It was
just
a
like you can
miracle,
keep
yeah.
your eyes open today. I think it's okay if you're like sitting around not sleeping the whole day and not doing work. Like the last thing you need in your face is your laptop. You know, so I think that
Yeah.
also really helps to share it with your loved ones and be like, hey, this voice is really screaming at me. What do you think?
That's a big deflator for fear
Yeah,
or doubt is speaking it out.
yeah,
So I know it sounds counterintuitive because you're like, it's my biggest secret that I have self doubt and I want to be a confident person.
yeah.
But it's proof of confidence and bravery if you're willing to acknowledge your own vulnerability and speak your truth in that sense.
Yeah, and the last thing I discovered a while back that also helps is to write it down on a piece of paper and burn it.
Ah, yes, the burning. The
That's also really powerful. That's kind of a ritual for yourself to be like, I'm done with this type of self belief, this false self belief. Recently, I burned 5 pieces of paper, and I was like, yeah, that felt really good. Like what? What makes you think that? You know, that sometimes just that ritual doing that really helps as well to kind of
Mm,
like relieve release it and let go of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it for today.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Thanks so much for your support.
You can find us every Tuesday live on Instagram and Facebook. If you can't make it live, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Playlist. Give us a 5-star rating if you like it.
Share.
And check out the
Throw topics at
videos
us.
on YouTube as well. Love Change out.
Bye bye.